Welcome to Successgineering Your Life. This is the Blab Show where I'm Ravi Tangri and I'm bringing in some amazing people who are sharing their insights, their ideas on and life hacks, if you will, on how to success-geneer your life more effectively for a more fulfilling, more passionate life. And my guest this week is Audrey Parker. Audrey, thank you so much for joining us. And your passion that that's really you're on fire for right now is about helping other people connect with passion in their lives and meaningfulness. Is that not right?
Well, thanks for having me. And yes, I've come to a major pathway in my own life, and at this point, I really want to share my life's experiences, and if I can inspire others or help them to maybe reconsider how they're living their lives and looking at the way they're living, I'm all for it.
Well, perhaps it may be useful for you to sort of share how you came to this, because you've had quite a powerful journey, especially recently.
Yes. Well, career-wise, my life was always based on just experiences. I did not follow a typical path. I was always people would call me and offer me really fabulous challenges my entire career. So I would see myself get a call to come and be a makeup artist for national TV with no training, just a love of makeup. And then all of a sudden I'm a full-time makeup artist at the CBC doing makeup on national journalists. Then I would maybe get a call to recruit 750 people for a fundraiser that raised over $1 million. And I did it with no experience. So my whole career, I've been just taking on really interesting challenges. And then this year, as of the new year, after spending the last year in excruciating pain and really concerned about my health because I was in really bad shape, I was getting to the point I could barely get out of bed in the morning for the pain that I was suffering. And I ended up with Bell's palsy, found myself in the hospital with a team of doctors, specialists trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And this past January, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer that had metastasized into my entire torso, including my head, my facial skeleton, my skull, cranium, I'm full. So it's called a super scan. So I really felt at that time, given my health, that I maybe had 6 months to live. In fact, when I looked up the sort of symptoms that I would have when I was near death, I already had them. But since that time, I accepted that diagnosis immediately. I went right to acceptance, no grieving, no anger. And I thought, for the first time in my life, instead of just living my life for experiences and going where the wind blows me, for once I'm going to not reinvent myself. I'm just going to be who I am and share my experiences. And when I started, the first thing I wanted to do after I got my diagnosis was to take care of my affairs. So I planned my funeral. I just signed my will yesterday. And I talked about it with a lot of my friends, and they were crying and freaking out. And I was perfectly fine. I had to move my friends and my family along. So one thing that I noticed was my way of dealing about death. Like, a lot of people are really afraid of dying, and I never really thought about that before. And unlike, I think, everyone around me, I have zero fear of dying. I almost died several times in my life, so I have no fear of it. And with that in mind, maybe that's how I've lived my life. Maybe that's why I've lived the way I've lived compared to many other people. So I think that's sort of my message right now, Ravi, is I'm trying to get people around me to think about planning for that, because when you do that, it's so empowering. It makes you reconsider your life in different ways. So that's my big message right now.
So when you say planning for that, say a bit more about that to get people.
Well, and I joke about it, and it freaks people out because I laugh about it. But when I started to look into having my funeral, I thought, I really want my husband and I just divorced. So I'm totally on my own other than my stepdaughters and my step-grandchildren, whom I consider my family because I have no others. But I didn't want to sort of leave things for them to have to handle. So I thought I'm going to go and book my funeral. So when I went, I could not believe how expensive it was. And all I wanted was to be cremated, nothing more, nothing less. So then I spoke to a girlfriend and she said, Audrey, I saw this man on CBC talking about how he's doing funerals for a lesser price. So I sought him out. We really became fast friends when he came to my house to discuss it with me. And we had a great chat, and I was joking around saying, I know a lot of people in the province. Anyone that hooks me up with a good funeral will probably get some business from it. So I was sort of laughing and talking like this. So in the end, he quoted me $1,800, and I almost paid $500. Since then, he's even given me a better deal. I won't discuss that. I won't tell the price. But even at $1,800, it is a phenomenal price. And it's a lot easier when you're planning your own funeral to negotiate and do all of that instead of your family being at the mercy of funeral directors, and they don't want to appear cheap or they don't want to get you all the best. So I just found it a really empowering situation. So he said, the funeral director that I made the deal with, he said, I'd love for you to work for me. And so anyway, I called one of my stepdaughters and I said, I was offered a job. I got a fabulous price and it's all taken care of. And she was laughing, saying, you're the only person who could, organize her funeral, get a job offer and make a new friend. So with that experience, it really empowered me to sort of take control of my life. I'm having a Chanel theme. My urn is going to be a handbag. I have Chanel candles coming from the state. So I'm having a Chanel theme for my funeral, which is very apropos because I love fashion. I worked in fashion for many years. I have a little Chanel tattoo, and my friends and family would expect nothing less of me. But, with that being said, and the price that you pay now for a funeral, if I happen to live for 50 more years, I will be cremated for the for the check that I gave him last week. It doesn't go up in price. So it's from an economical standpoint, it's a fantastic deal.
So take control of your life to craft your own funeral, to do that's one thing, but share a bit more, because you and I've talked about how there's a lot of people who do live their life sort of just bouncing around and not taking control to create the life that they really want. Can you tell me a bit more about how you feel that's so important to do?
Well, I know, Ravi, that you're all about living with purpose, and that's a great thing to have in the back of your mind when you're making decisions. And I really, since I've had to face my own mortality seriously, I really think that, living your life with not just like in this day and age with television and devices, and I love the devices just as much as the next guy. We are almost living. We're not even living in many respects. We're just kind of going through the paces every day. And, if you have to think about the end of your life, it really makes you think about your present life. If you're going from job to job, who cares? I did that my entire life, but I always made sure I worked really hard and did my best. So, most people would not have been able to pull off all of the things that I have miraculously pulled off in my career because I worked really hard. And the one thing that I've always been good at is seeing the forest for the trees. So I'm really good at figuring out what has to be done and finding how to get it done, breaking it down in smaller bits and getting it done. So I sort of apply that to everything I do, whether it's a contract that I'm taking on, whether it's how I'm going to live out the rest of my life. So for example, someone with my health prognosis, when I look it up, no one will say to you, doctors aren't as apt to say to you, you've got like 3 months to live, unless you've got 3 months to live. If it's more than that, they don't really want to, I think they kind of don't want to limit you by putting a time on it, unless it's very, very short. So I've been told, I could live anywhere from 24 months to 5 years, 10 years, who knows? Because I've been feeling so much better. And I wanted to say that before I was diagnosed, I really believe I was on death's door. I was definitely going down that path. But since then, I've taken hormone therapy. I've really gotten my headset, my mindset is really geared towards being positive and accepting. So it's made me feel a lot better. And most people don't even think I look sick. I don't even feel sick until I get up and move around, and then I get tired easily. But so with your question, I guess it's really about setting your mindset. Our mind we have so much power over our outcomes in our lives with our mindset.
Absolutely.
Anything, Ravi, that I have wanted to achieve, and I really put my mind to it, it always happened. When I just sort of let things float by, and let devil may care happen, and I don't really care so much about the outcome, then whatever happens, happens. But anything I've set my mind to, I have accomplished in my life. And I even feel that this diagnosis came for a reason. Absolutely. I believe my life is unfolding exactly as it is supposed to.
Well, there's a couple of things that you mentioned. I'd like to catch on. One of the things you said was about breaking things down. Okay, so you said when you set your mind to it, you've always accomplished it. And something else you said earlier was about breaking things down. Can you give me an example of how the two of those connect? Okay,
so I'll use my past experiences, even with my work, just for example. So I was called by a man who purchased a very large ladies' department store that had been in existence for 100 years. And he called me. He had had several managers before me. It had never really worked out. A friend that we have in common said, call Audrey. If anyone can do it, take care of this business, it will be her. And I do have a very wide background and experience in the fashion industry. So I took on this. I had 12 months to either sell the business or turn it around. And when I first went there was a mass exodus of staff. The business was losing money hand over fist. My first day, I noted that there were 7,000 emails that had been sent to the store, and no one had even looked at them. So it was like taking on a monster. So, I had to take care of staff. I had to figure out how to, I had to look at the stock because it was a department store. It had many departments. So the point being, it was a huge monster to kind of break down and look at what I could do. So the first thing I had to do was I knew I had to save the staff. I had to get the staff to keep from leaving and hire some new staff. And then it was a matter of looking at the stock because I had to jump right in and start buying. And so it was really just, I actually went up to the office. I made a game plan. And I had rows of sticky notes up and down the walls. And I just started, I looked at the big picture and then looked at all of the other things that made up that big picture and started attacking them one at a time. And, anyone that I could get to help me, I did. And within that year, we sold the business because I was able to make enough headway that it made it a desirable business for people to purchase. But I worked, 80 hours a week for 12 months, night and day. Yeah. But I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to put the work in. I couldn't do it for a long, long term. I usually go in, burn myself out on a contract, and then away I go on to something else. But again, and I think if you attack your life sort of the same way, I see so many people, Ravi, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. Yep. And you have to make changes. So for example, when I got my cancer diagnosis, I could have been poor me I
Mm-hmm.
could have been running, for the hills. I could have been really scared and trying to save my life by going to this clinic and that clinic. And really what's going to be is going to be. So I accepted it.
Yep.
Now I have to figure out, just like I did at the store or, working on a big fundraiser, I have to look at how I'm going to live my life until my health makes it so that I pass away. So I've decided to get my affairs in order. I'm in the midst of writing a book, so I want to get
Yep.
that completed, my first draft by August 1st. And I speak whenever I can with situations like this to try to inspire. If I can inspire a person to not be fearful, then I feel like I've done something meaningful. So again, just like everything else I've done, I'm chopping away so that I can live a meaningful life, but still accomplish things.
Yes. So I'm curious on your thoughts, and I know we've had a conversation around this. Is why is it you talk about making the most of the time you've got and really making it meaningful, right? To really live it fully. So many people um, are afraid to dream, and it's almost like they settle for mediocrity in a way. And why do you think that is? That people are afraid to unlock what's there inside of them because they can do so much.
Absolutely.
And yet they're afraid to step out and they settle.
I don't know. I think that a lot of people grow up with limitations being set on them. You're not good at this. So if you're not good at math, you're never going to be good. Like kids grow up and they're like, you're terrible at math, blah, blah, blah. And, really math is not difficult. If you get behind, you need help to get caught up, because if you get behind, it's really hard to ever catch up. So
yeah.
I think so if you take a person and a lot of people and look at the way they were raised, most people don't get a lot of encouragement when they're growing up. And then when they become adults, they take on all the stresses of work and life and, making a home and whatever. And it's really hard to keep all those balls in the air. So then you start failing at, your house is a mess, or your life gets messier by the year. And then I think people just give up. For myself, I put a lot of lines in the sand. I've been on my own since I was 16 years old. Like my when I was a young person, my life was not rosy, and I couldn't really rely on the adults around me. So at 16 years old, I ventured it on my own, and I've been, taking care of myself since. So I drew a lot of lines in the sand. For example, I always wanted to have nice things. I grew up with not having nice things, but I always wanted to have nice things. I would work 2 and 3 jobs to have nice clothes, and I didn't need a big place, but it had to be nice.
Yeah.
Even when I started dating, I always wanted to date men who were well educated, that treated me nicely. I always had those sort of lines in the sand. And if I would date someone that didn't fit that mold, then I wouldn't see them again. Now, that's not to say I didn't get myself into some jams when I was really young. But as I got older, I really followed those sort of guidelines that I had set for myself.
Yep.
I have stupid guidelines for myself. Like I will never, like I cannot, like I have silver jewelry on.
Mm-hmm.
I could not have gold earrings and silver bracelets on. I just couldn't do it. It would go migraine. And I know that sounds silly, but that type of thing is so ingrained in me. So because I'm really particular, when I'm doing a job or figuring out what I'm going to do in my life, I take that being particular into almost everything I do. So I see it as a good thing. I see it as it's something that makes me reach for the stars rather than accepting mediocrity.
So I'm going to challenge you a little bit here. I'm going to challenge you because at the beginning you said you just sort of floated through life and opportunity came to you. But
That's
at the
right.
same time, you weren't just floating, you were floating with these lines in the sand. The
Absolutely.
only opportunities that came were those that passed those criteria.
Uh, well, again, I would, but I haven't said no to many contracts. Even if they were things, I guess because of who I am and people knowing me,
Hmm.
um, and knowing what I'm all about, and that I get things done, and I'm hardworking, and I'm particular, and I'm very friendly with people. I'm, another gift I have is I can create rapport with people very quickly. So
Hmm.
a lot of the work that I've done really requires someone who can work well with others and inspire others. And but I guess when I say floating around, what I mean really is I've just been very open. I've
Yep.
been open to good things happening to me, and I tried to avoid bad things happening. When I was younger, I was open to everything. I
Hmm.
would find myself in some major jams, and I would be, but you know what? I was still who I am, but I would be with people that I had no business being around. But again, it was gaining wisdom, gaining experience. And I'm one of those people, when I learn something, I try to use it the next time around.
Yep.
Instead of trying to make the same mistakes over and over, I've always tried to learn from them. Does
So
that meet your challenge at all?
it does. I guess what I'm getting at is that when you say that when you want something, you make it happen, right? The way that we're coming to understand how we create our life is you create that image, infuse it with passion, and you
Mm-hmm.
do the work, and it happens. But even when you didn't have
When I was younger,
a clear image, you still had those standards, those lines in the sand. So there
yes,
may not have been a specific image, but you had a frame around the picture. And
that's
so
right.
the only opportunities that came to you were those that fit within that frame.
That's right. So I mean, I'm also, as I'm speaking, I'm also thinking about when I was young, and we're certainly not as experienced when we're younger. And I made tons of mistakes. I got in with the wrong people. I made lots of mistakes. When I talk about the lines in the sand, I guess over time, as I developed into into an adult, I started realizing I needed to set guidelines for myself, because
Hmm.
I was so open to everything before.
Yep.
And as I learned, like if I was around a certain kind of girlfriend, I would say to myself, I am never doing that again. If someone shows me who they are, I am going to believe who they are.
Yeah.
And, so I really like who I've become, because I have tried to develop and learn from those mistakes over the years. I'm very particular. Like, I do not want to spend time with people I don't want to spend time with. Life
Yeah.
is too short. But how many years when I was in my first marriage, I've been married twice. In my first marriage, as a couple, we spent so much time with other couples when neither one of us even really liked them, but they were part of our group. And, so now, absolutely not. If I don't want to spend time with people, I don't spend time with them.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
rather spend time with the ones I want to.
And so many people just put on that smile and the facade and grit their teeth and go through it instead of saying no.
But you can be nice to everyone. I am nice to
Yeah.
everyone.
Yep.
But you can still be very select with who you spend quality time with. Same thing at work. Like when you're working, I truly believe that if you are working somewhere right now and you absolutely detest your job, or you have people
Mhm.
bullying you at work, nothing is going to change unless you change it. You have to make that a line in the sand that you're not going to allow people to treat you poorly.
Yep.
And the only way you can change that is go out and talk to people, talk to your friends, put the word out that you'd like to find a new position, apply for new positions, go find a mentor, do something to try to save yourself, because no one's going to save you but you.
So I'm wondering if the title of your book is My Lines in the Sand.
Maybe so. Every friend that I talk with, everyone comes up with a really good titles, and I am not good at the titles. So I think, Ravi, once I have it completed, I'll probably have a brainstorming session with yourself and a bunch of other friends, and we'll drink some wine and we'll throw some ideas
There's a
around.
brainstorming tool.
That's
A
right.
bottle of red.
Again, no one knows what's right for each one of us other than ourselves.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to. But it's up to us to make changes in our life. And it's so easy to get stuck in a rut. And it's
Yeah.
just so important. We only have one life, but I do believe this, Ravi. I do believe that our lives are predestined. How do you like that?
Okay. Depends on what you mean by destined.
I think
Destiny.
that we're on a learning journey. I think that, we can all look at religion and all of that. And I've really been thinking about that. I met Anita Morjani, who wrote the book Dying
Mhm.
to Be Me recently. And I loved her story about going to the other side and coming back. I liked the way she um, explained her experience. And it kind of morphs into a lot of my beliefs. And so another message that I'm trying to share with people is the fact that it's so easy to be in a situation such as mine, anyone's situation in their life, good or bad. And if it's a bad situation, say, poor me, like, why is this happening to me? God is so mean, it's so unfair. I challenge people to try to step out of their situation and say, okay, what am I being taught right now? What am I learning? What should I take from this situation? How can I use it to better my life? So
Yep.
that's one thing I think is important. The other thing is that I believe that there's a silver lining all around us. So I get diagnosed with terminal cancer. Well, life is terminal anyway. We're all dying, aren't we? But I see the silver linings. I get to play. It makes me get around and get my affairs in order. I have my will finally completed. I have my funeral. I get to organize my funeral, and I've asked friends to help out in certain ways. So I'm actually going to, when I die, I'm going to have the funeral that I really want instead of something that other people have had to sort of put together.
Yeah.
The other silver lining when you get like a cancer diagnosis or whatever, I can't tell you how many people have sought me out, people I've known for years. And my social life has never been better. So being positive, if I wasn't positive, people wouldn't probably want to be around me. But there's always a silver lining, and there's always something that you're learning at all times. You just have to be coherent, be aware of that fact, and look for it. You know,
Well, and the part of that too, I mean, is in those social circles,
mhm.
you touch so many lives. Like there's a very special friend you and I share that, and
Yes.
she's been on a very powerful journey with you. It's
Mhm.
been transformational for her to share this journey with you. I
That's
know,
right.
and
And
so
she is
that.
someone, Ravi, that I've known her for years,
Mhm.
but we really only connected and became very close right before the diagnosis. And she has been through it with me thick and, she's
Yeah,
been a phenomenal support to me.
yeah, and it's been transformational for her. I mean, that's a powerful word, but it's so true in that case.
Hmm. How do you
So
see it being transitional for her, or what have you seen?
I just see part of the emotional journey because she's more, or well, at least she was initially much more emotional and upset than you were. You were laughing your way through the journey, and
Yeah,
I think it's vicariously she's valuing her mortality through your journey,
I'm glad.
and is starting to make choices
Hmm.
that have that perspective in mind because it's it doesn't matter how old you are. You think it's so long until that time's going to come. For you, it's you know it's still a question mark, but there's potentially a much shorter time
Yes,
frame.
I could go downhill. I could wake up tomorrow and feel like heck and could be dead in 6 months' time. There's no guarantee. I believe that, and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go tonight if I have to go tonight. That's the point. Yeah. I just have no idea, but I do know this. I do not want to live and be in a lot of pain. I did that for a year, and how I got through it, I have no idea, because it was just excruciating. It was so bad. But I agree. The friend that we're talking about, I call her my softie because she would cry constantly. I'd be on the phone with her and she'd start crying. And I'd say, don't cry. Like, it's going to be okay. God knows you might be stuck with me for a long time. Who knows? but she has said to me too that she's not as afraid of death as she once was. And I'm telling you, it's not something to be scared of. I've come really close 3 times in my life. And I think that when we die, it is the most beautiful, peaceful moment of our entire existence. I think that being born, I always say that, I think that being born is far more scary. I mean, just think about coming out of a nice, beautiful womb and into the light and the noise and the
cold.
And I think that would be much harder to be born than it is to pass away. The hardest thing is leaving those that we love. But yourself, when you go on vacation, your loved ones miss you more usually than you miss them, because you're on the vacation. So when you pass away, you're the one that's leaving. You're going to be gone. I don't think it's going to be scary at all. I think it's going to be beautiful. It's sad for my family to be left behind. For those that will be sad that I'm gone. But, I don't want anyone to be sad, because I've had a beautiful life. I've had so many wonderful experiences. And, but if I'm going to live life, I want it to be meaningful. So if I can help others, I help my stepdaughters with the grandchildren. If I can, I don't want to just sit around and do nothing. I want to have my existence be meaningful.
And I love that you're helping others discover that when they don't have that brought up into their face. So that's an amazing legacy, I think. And that's something I think we all need to look at, is what's the legacy we want to leave.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I don't think that highly of myself that I'm all about having a legacy. But
we all have a legacy.
We all have a legacy. For my grandchildren, I think that the legacy I will leave for them is that I'm fun to be around, that I expect a lot of them. There's no saucing or no being bad around Nano.
Yeah.
In fact, my stepdaughters will say, if you're not being good, I'm going to call Nano. It's not that they're afraid of me. They respect me. I'm really consistent with them. They know exactly what is expected. And my ex-husband used to want to spoil them. And one day he said, you're being too hard on them. So I said, okay, you be the boss for the weekend. And by the end of the weekend, they were not behaving very well for him. And after that, I noticed he always said, if you don't be good, I'm going to go tell Nanny. But anyway, so I think, the legacy for my family is that, I'm a very loving, consistent, someone they can rely on kind of person. In the world, I think the legacy for the people that have known me would be, a lot of my friends say that I'm hardworking, I'm talented, I take on a challenge and work so hard at it. But I really want my legacy to be around helping others. A lot of people have helped me along the way in my life, and I really want to try to help people not be afraid of life, be open to change, and look for lessons and silver linings in your life. Even something that's happening that's really, really bad. Like if you're going through a divorce, well, the silver lining, one thing you've learned is that maybe, that person wasn't the right person for you. Mm-hmm. Learn from that, go on to the next person, the next love of your life, and draw some lines in the sand. See what was good about that relationship, what was bad, and use it to grow as a human being and grow as a loving person. And, if you're sick, don't let cancer define you. I've run into people that had much
Yes.
lower levels of cancer as far as it demolishing your body than I have. And they just let it define them. That's all they talk about. That's all they think about. I'm telling you, Ravi, unless I'm talking to someone such as we are talking right now, it never crosses my mind that I have cancer. I don't even think about it. I don't even think about it. I don't say it unless I'm talking about it to a friend or someone brings it up. It's doesn't.
And honestly, to broaden it, it doesn't have to be cancer. People become their story instead of being who they are. So it's how can you step out of the story
Yes.
and just be you, right? It's not, you're not your story.
That's right. And it's all in the same vein. Like it's like living with purpose, as you always say. It's, I think we have to decide who we're going to be as a person. Like as a person, for example, I have decided it is so easy, and I won't just limit this to women because God knows I've worked with some men that were the biggest gossipers around. So it's not a female thing at all. I think men are worse at gossiping than women. But I have a new line in the sand for me is that for the rest of the days that I spend on this earth, I am not going to be unkind. I've made my mind up. And I'll tell you, if you have negativity around you, it is so difficult to be kind, to be 100% kind.
It's toxic.
It is. So if you are in a toxic environment, you can't help but it wear off on you. So I would think that I'm a fairly kind person, but I received some sort of negative emails from an aunt of mine who thinks I'm faking that I have cancer. Why she would think that, I have no idea. But anyway, maybe it's her way of dealing with the whole situation. I have no idea. She thinks I should be like in a corner somewhere waiting to die. Anyway, her negativity was starting to rub off on me a little bit. And one day, a friend of mine made a comment that I would normally not comment on. Maybe it was like a little comment about someone, and I could feel the words starting to come out of my mouth, and I shoved them right back in.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I am not going to say anything negative about anyone. I am on a path of beautiful peace and tranquility, and I am not going to be negative about anyone else or about myself.
Yeah.
And but it's so easy to fall off that wagon, to fall off that path. You have to constantly keep working at it.
It's interesting what you say about being around it, because I found that it's sometimes necessary to fire some friends and fire some relatives if they are too much in that in that negative vein. It's like a soup that you're in, and there's actually science that shows that there's a when you go into that, we have a second brain in our bodies, in our hearts, and it emits an electromagnetic field that you can measure several feet out, and the field shifts based on emotional states. So if you're around someone who's very negative, it radiates from them, and it's just like taking a tuning fork and bringing it near another. It starts resonating if you don't know how to protect yourself.
Yes, I believe that. I believe in that very much, Ravi. It just goes to show you, like, if you have a lot of negative, toxic people in your life, then how can you not have a toxic life?
Yeah.
So you talked earlier about, or you questioned me earlier about, how to break down things. And I think, if we are really honest with ourselves and can get outside of ourselves and look in on our life, go for a walk by the ocean, or go someplace that's quiet by yourself, take a journal, pen, and just ask yourself some personal questions and just say, like, am I living in a toxic environment? Do I have negative people in my life? Is my work environment good for me? Is it bad for me? Is it challenging? Am I, being treated poorly? What am I doing to make my life better? If you're living in a toxic life, you're the only one who can change that, because no matter how badly we feel defeated, we are in charge of our own lives. We are the only ones who can change it. You can believe, as I believe, that we choose life and all of its ups and downs for a learning journey. If you're a person who's religious, you can look at it from your perspective, but it all boils down to the fact that we are in charge of our own destinies. And if we don't, fire family and friends occasionally, I have done it. Well, a lot of people that were in my life for probably 10 years, not a single one of them are in my life anymore. It just wasn't a good fit anymore. And I changed, just like in marriages, we always hear that one person changed more than the others. Well, it happens with friends. It happens in life. I think that's really a good point you've brought up.
Yeah. So I think that is a really good point to leave it on. I love that idea of even if you don't go to the question, just sitting. I love sitting by the ocean. It's nourishing, it's healing, or just meditating, sitting still. You start to feel what doesn't fit in your life if you can be that way. So thank you so much, Audrey, for all of this. And you are working on your book, which you'll figure out what the title is when the time is right.
It's more of it's a memoir, basically, but just talking about near-death experiences and what it has taught me, and how my lines in the sand, and just some things that I've done that I have found really helpful in my life, and just want to share it. And if it can help someone, then that's wonderful.
Thank you so much. And folks, you can make sure, in order to keep up with the Blabs on Facebook, you can look up Your Life Vision Coach or Successgineering Your Life, and you can find the weekly Blabs on there. And we will see you next week.